Hello. I wanted to jump on today while this experience was fresh. Today's a Friday. How was your week? Uh, the thing I wanted to talk about was rituals and structures that support creative practice to happen. So sometimes we think of creative activity or being an artist as finding inspiration, and that's part of it. But what I particularly remembered today was that we can actually set up our lives to put us in situations that allow inspiration to arrive rather than kind of waiting for inspiration to then act. And, I've heard this and read this in so many different books over the years. But what I realized today, because I completed two different creative rituals that I have that support my creative practice, and I'm sharing those with you in a minute, um, was that when we have structures and frequencies in place where we know that we're going to show up, and usually it's with the accountability of at least one other person that helps, um, that we make inspiration more likely to happen because somehow the action of being in our practice and learning how to start moving something um, is what often activates whatever the alchemy is that makes us receptive to our own inspiration to arrive. So, have you ever had the experience of being in the shower or washing dishes or driving your car or walking and having that brilliant inspiration or idea or vision pop into your head? It's very common. And there's a lot of theories about why it happens. But have you ever also had the experience of buying a brand new, beautiful notebook, an expensive fountain pen, getting a new desk, building out a new studio, sitting there and not being able to write anything? So we can set up what we think are perfect conditions to create based on some image that we have, uh, you know, whether it's equipment, location, um, you know, calling ourselves artists, whatever it is, we can do all those things and still um, not have inspiration arrive. And then we can also be um, doing something else, and all of a sudden inspiration arises. So the challenge is if we want to actually have a consistent creative practice, whether it's to do something professionally with our creativity or to just have it as a reliable part of our lives that we can turn to when we want to be in relationship with a different part of our consciousness. Um, we we need to set up certain structures. I call them structures or rituals. So rituals to me is something that happens that can be repeated, like an action or some kind of prompt that can always get me moving. And when I repeat that structure and begin to trust movement, then I um, discover what is on the other side of that trust. And so I can always um, fearlessly begin to move and then trust that something will happen. It's not that inspiration and brilliance come every time, but something interesting or encouraging or um, at least affirmative of the practice happens after this ritual that allows me to begin. And a structure, I would say, is some kind of a container of time or place um, that gives me a place to put my actions. Um, and let me get more concrete with that. So I have been meeting on Zoom with a few different friends, one-on-one, creative friends who have their own creative practice, not necessarily professional artists, but people who are committed in my same way to having creativity be part of their healing journey and development and growth as a person. And and these have been friends. It hasn't. These are not classes yet um, that I've offered, but I'm also, speaking about this right now because I am thinking of this fall offering a structure for people, anyone, to join me in a creative structure that can support your practice. So I don't teach anything, and there's no technique that you're learning from me, but it's a place, a space where each person there has um, a structure to get their own work done. And let me just share what the structure is. For me, it's bookended by silence for some period of minutes, sitting still, breathing in your own body, not talking, not on any devices. And there's no guidance, there's no visualization that I'm telling you to do, but it's simply sitting with yourself in your own body and your own breath. So there's no direction on how fast or slow you need to breathe, where you need to breathe, but simply, however you know to do it, sitting. So those are the bookends. And then as an entree, some kind of a short reading of, could be a quote, it could be a passage from someone who speaks to this process of the creative practice and the journey. And then a timed writing where we each just respond in whatever way is there for us that day to respond in free writing. And it's a timed writing, and it is about letting the hand move across the page with no editing, no crossing out, no correcting, just continuous movement of the hand with a timer. And when the timer goes off, it's followed by reading that writing that you just wrote, the unedited writing. You read it out loud once for yourself to hear what you wrote, and for the writing to come off the page and breathe in the air with no feedback. So there's no critique, there's no criticism, there's no no praise, no nothing. Just silence, deep listening and silence. And that practice, I'll just say, comes from Natalie Goldberg. Those of you who have been hearing me talk about her, that is the core practice teaching that I've received from her, and I really trust the value of that practice over time. And after that will be some timed period of open work on what you need to get done. And really, there's no judgment here. If what really, I just, I don't even want to give specific examples, but if really what you need to get done to clear your plate is answering emails, great, do that. But also, if it's you want to get started on your quilting project, your tiny sacred book, your collage, your art journal, your writing, your novel, your screenplay, your business plan, your website design, your bio description, your proposal for the next project, whatever it is, literally no judgment. But the rule is that you do something that is important to you, and and you focus on it. You're not texting, scrolling on your phone, looking at any social media, looking at any websites, reading. So you're not doing any of that. You are doing something that is about your output and your action towards something that is personally meaningful and significant to you right now to get done. Hopefully toward a creative end, but really there's no judgment there because there's so many things during that container, that moment of time when it's scheduled and it's chosen, that could come up as really important to get done. And I find that first time of silence sitting, that's our time to get in touch with what that is. So we might come with plans. This has happened where we have plans of, oh, I'm going to work on this. But when we sit and settle for the first few minutes and just breathe into our own bodies and let our thoughts detach a little bit and let our heart rates come down, that something else might rise to the top as wanting to be done today. And that's what we honor. And that is both a ritual and a structure. And I'm sharing it with you right now because I've realized in my observation of how the internet has evolved and changed teaching and learning is now information. So, me telling you this structure is a commodity that is completely free and what we've deemed to be of no economic value, but is freely available anywhere. You can get a lot of information. I could tell you a lot of things. You could read books for free. You can hear people's stories for free. Generally, that is now the norm, that you could look up how to do something or what someone's way of doing something is. And there's even videos showing how things are done. However, the the knowledge that comes from practice is now probably the highest value thing in our world because it takes so many things for one person to dedicate themselves over a period of time to the practice that is an internal and external meeting. It's the harmony of the internal and the external that is practice. And it's time. And that is absolutely still one of the most valuable things that we have to negotiate in our own lives with our own situations, how to get the time that we have to make practice happen. And how do we overcome all of the voices inside and outside that will convince us that that time doesn't exist or is too valuable spent on something else to be allocated to practice. So, the thing that's most valuable right now in the world is how you spend your time. And so, I am just telling you what the structure is, and you can go do it yourself. Or I'm also going to offer this fall, starting in September, with more details to come, um, opportunities for anyone to join via Zoom in this container, coming with their own creative work to do. And what I'm offering and what we're creating together by showing up is a structure and a ritual for you to experience what this might do for your own creative practice. So that's what I had to say. Let's see. I talked about the bookends. I wanted to also say that part of the practice is in that moment. Once you committed to joining, and there'll be options to just drop in for one time, or there'll be an option to join the all six sessions. They'll be twice a month, so every 2 weeks for 3 months. Um, Once that commitment is made, whether you're coming for one time or 6 times, um, that you get to experience making your own decision about what to work on, and then um, being in relationship with that, right? Reflecting on what that was like for you and integrating that into your own practice after the sessions end. And that's really useful to observe yourself as you put yourself into this structure. You observe yourself and you learn that way. That's part of the practice. And that's what inspired me to want to share today, because I just had two of these containers and structures where I was in it with one friend in each case, one at a time. And and that was one of the big learnings, that we don't wait for inspiration. We actually show up to the structure and trust the structure and get into action and inspiration often arrives, and that the structure is actually very simple and can be, you can make up your own, you can get it from so many books, but the difference is, do you actually show up, and how do you show up? First of all, do you show up? And then how do you show up during that time? And that's what it's all about. And that no one can give you. Sorry. But there can be support. And I've been thinking about wanting to offer this for over a year. And now finally, everything is sort of aligning where I'm actually doing that. And again, today is July 29th, and I'm talking about something that will start in September of 2022. So in about 5 or 6 weeks. And again, there'll be more details. So I'm actually doing this to hold myself accountable to that since I don't want it to go longer where I've thought about it and thought about it without doing it. So um, I'm in practice, and I'm offering something that has worked for me. And I invite you to experience what it does for you. And again, it's something you can do on your own with me and whoever else chooses to join. Rituals and structures, beginnings, endings, beginning again. Those have been the biggest lessons in my years of developing creative practice, and more to come.